Wonderful day, wonderful day, wonderful day. This is your neighborhood sensei Fouché, and I'm telling all y'all to stay woke. But please, make sure you relax and always take notes. Welcome to all you wonderful people, constant followers, listeners to the Stay Woke program of conversations in regards to higher self enlightenment, self worth, and honorable value. It is my honor to have these conversations and be able to share in my continued education, in my daily application. And pardon me, I'm a little bit uncomfortable. I still have this back thing going on. And it's a specific focus that is required in order to minimize what could be a high level of pain. So I guess one thing to open up, because I wanted to speak about this in regards to the Super Bowl, which went on yesterday. And I had no personal preference into the victor, a specific victor in the outcome. No bad press from either team as far as having extremely egotistical minded leaders or people in high positions, where it gets a lot of press. And that's just from, a regular life standpoint, because this is a little deeper than that. But the reason why I wanted to speak about this is because the performer is a current mainstream sensation in regards to, younger people than I, for sure. Like, I'm almost 52. But the following of his demographic is teenagers going up to people around 30, maybe as old as 40 years old. You know what I'm saying? And I've heard a lot of great things about this artist from younger people. And I've heard a couple of tracks here or there. And I am not going to be overly opinionated, because for me it has less to do with the new age, and it has more to do with the fact that I am understanding more and more that there is a lot of misguided information within the music scene. And I started studying this probably more in my age level of music history, more than these new people that's coming out now. The new people, in loose reference, had me really looking deeper into my own music. Because when I was growing up, back in the 80s and 90s, in my earliest years, my parents or people my parents' age dismissed and really didn't have a high regard for what we call hip hop music or simply rap. You know what I'm saying? They just found it offensive and angry. You know what I'm saying? And I'm speaking for myself. I was rebellious. And I was negatively charged because I had an uncomfortable life psychologically, growing up in my household or my circumstances. You know what I'm saying? So that rebellion identified with me. Like, I could care less about how detrimental, the information was, because it kept me charged up. It kept that conscious con growing at a higher level of self-abuse in what we know now. You know what I'm saying? And how we speak now on this platform. And that's what I understand now. But I had to go back in order to move forward in proper content and context. You know what I'm saying? And the content is the music, and the context is the information that was infused in the music. So, whatever has these younger folks connected to Kendrick Lamar being like an inspirational, or more of a, what they would kind of call, from what I understand, more of that more educated, or more what's the word? He's kind of like a today's political stated type of artist or rapper, where he has, statements or, messages in his music to a certain degree, because he's still caught up into the whole conscious con thing when it comes to possessions. You know what I'm saying? I noticed all the bling, all the change, the platinum, and I'm like, well, I understand that whole thing with, I guess, the show what went along with the depth of necessary tools in the aspect of entertainment that the NFL, as well as Rock Nation, behind, the whole aspect of putting the details of the performance together from a musical standpoint. But I'm like, yo, dude is, really being kind of image conscious with all of the extra bling. You know what I'm saying? And in my time, the most notable rapper that we were talking about, and there was two of them. One is the godfather of hip hop, as they call him, which is the legendary Rakim, from Eric B. and Rakim, Paid in Full album, 1986, 87. For anybody that want to look up the classics, look that up. And he was speaking what we labeled as 5%er talk. You know what I'm saying? Messages from which was an offspring of the Nation of Islam. And the 5%ers were deeply rooted in New York from the teachings and the followings of Clarence X. And if I'm right, I think it was Clarence X the 13th, to be specific, within the Nation of Islam. He wound up leaving the nation and forming his own denomination, and it was labeled the 5%ers. And Rakim used to spit what we call 5% knowledge, but a lot of it at the same time was so street oriented, because he was talking about, success and getting money, which is a possession, and the artist I was going to connect to him, because this was Rakim was this artist idol. This artist looked up to Rakim is Nas. When we talk about Nas's idol was Rakim. You know what I'm saying? So me going in the grade school process in the 80s, you know, I came up in the earliest stages with Rakim. Then by the time we hit the 90s in my early adulthood going into my 20s, you know, that's when Nas dropped. You know what I'm saying? Nas dropped when I turned 21, if I'm right. That's when he dropped that Illmatic album in 94. You know what I'm saying? And everybody was talking about how, you know, Nas is righteous, and, you know, he talks about, you know, higher level stuff. You know, he had the song I Am, and I remember Hate Me Now. I mean, I'm not going to go through his catalog, but Nas, you know, we had Tupac, we had NWA, you know, Outkast really stands out different for me. You know, De La Soul, which was, you know, a late 80s, 90s hip-hop phenomenon tied on with the Native Tongues, and A Tribe Called Quest, who I really wasn't feeling as much. Trust me, De La Soul was more the truth. You also had the rapper Common from out in Chicago. You know what I'm saying? But, yeah, Common was you know what I'm saying? Latifah from Jersey, Queen Latifah, who we all know from movie and television fame. Like, you know, she had some more enlightening type bars, you know, in her earlier stages, you know. But back to the subject of hip hop and rap in that moment, like, it was rejected by a lot of the older people. You know what I'm saying? So for me, going back into the music from listening to today's stuff, and I have kids, and I'm like, you know, this music's crap. But at the same time, when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, yo, you know, the stuff that we was listening to was kind of crappy too, you know. And once I'm going through the bars, and I'm an old school lyricist, you know, as far as writing, remembering other bars, and studying, man. I used to DJ. I had records upon records upon records. So, you know what I'm saying? When it comes to understanding not only the pulse of the music, like the lyrics behind it, like, I understand it. From Big to J to Mobb D. I mean, I used to recite this stuff. Like, it was drilled into my blood. And then when I really think about it, I'm like, man, you know, that was angry music. And I listened to it because I was angry, and I wanted to continue to be angry, and I wanted to continue to be negative, and I wanted a reason to react. You know what I'm saying? So me understanding honestly myself in that moment of time, the music gave me an extra reason to stay restricted. And that's what I came to terms with is, yo, art is art. You know what I'm saying? I still do art now. And younger people that I work with, I don't disrespect their art because it's all stages. You know what I'm saying? Upon them hearing my art and how I drop, you know, my specifics into lyrics going along with music, the information that I choose to speak, that should encourage them, especially if I'm very skilled in being who I know I am. And I'm going to tie that with my daughter. So my daughter told me she was listening to this track by Sexy Red, and it included Bruno Mars. You know what I'm saying? And I go back with Bruno Mars, into my, mid 30s. And I really was digging the cat, from his earliest years. But my daughter, who's a middle teen, and her having a respect for him as an iconic musician in history, and listening to his catalog prior, like, she wasn't feeling this song that he collaborated with along Sexy Red. You know what I'm saying? And the way she spoke it to me is, he sound like he was trying to be somebody else. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't sound like the Bruno Mars we know. He was too busy trying to sound like today's music, and we didn't need that. We needed for him to be Bruno Mars. You know what I'm saying? As far as the icon, and maybe infusing some of the new, but not going out of contrast, or being in contrast to who he was before. You know what I'm saying? So the interesting thing is, to me, like, why do you have to make it a point to try to fit into something that really no longer should relate to you? You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of haters out there. So for them to, try to say negative things about Kendrick Lamar's performance and how he sucks, and, bring back Nas, I'm like, man, you just sound like some bitter person that's still stuck in time. You know what I'm saying? And it's not that today's music should resonate with you, but respect a process in the evolution of people when it comes to art. I'm not going to play it in my car. I'm not going to jam it and act like, that's the hottest thing, or like I need to be into this so I could be accepted by society. Like, you know what I'm saying? That is where you are a high level clown, comic. And like I said, that's how my daughter was looking at Bruno Mars. And I know I had another example somewhere of someone in a past time that was trying to be more new. And I'm like, and this is when I was younger. So I'm like, man, why are you spending so much time, or you trying to be like young and you not? Like, you really just sound goofy. No different than a lot of these artists that I was listening to back in the day, and they're older than me. Like, I'm 52. How you 58, 59 talking about how you still trying to do disrespectful things, to women, and how you want to go and shoot a bunch of people or do some form of physical criminal harm to someone just for the goof of writing lyrics and trying to keep a audience base or stay relevant in the music scene. You got to try to sound tough and still try to sound like who you were from way before, like you still that person. I'm pretty sure a lot of these dudes are grandparents. You know what I'm saying? And their grandkids look at them different, or the way that they are around their grandkids is far from the image that they're still trying to keep and carry from a past before. You know what I'm saying? Music is always changing. And it's never going to be received by the older generation because they're haters. You know what I'm saying? Most of them, realistically, are trapped in the past, hoping that things will be the way that they used to be. well, back in the days, guys like Nas, like they better than these dudes. We need another Nas. What? Nah, that's not true, because what we thought was hot was really more, not really 100% on point with enlightenment, just little sprinkles here and there, just to kind of say that, you spiritual or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So you be stuck in the past. You can't accept the dressing styles. You know what I'm saying? The way that you talk, is still ghetto, like ghetto gangster old. Like you don't even sound respectful. The way that you think, it's still like young and ignorant, immature, bitter. You can't accept evolution, technology. Well, these things that we have today, like it's not as good as like cars. The cars in back in the day, they better than the cars today. The cars today are more efficient as far as being able to have better sustainability, and back in the days, it didn't have that same kind of sustainability. So when you be stuck in the past, looking for a future connected to what used to be, all this time we've been talking about now. The power of now. You know what I'm saying? And not being in that cycle of past and future. And like I said, to wrap this whole thing up with Kendrick Lamar, like I saw the performance, you know what I'm saying, this morning. I didn't watch it while it was going on because I wasn't interested. And the only reason I watched it was because of all the feedback. So I was like, oh, let me see this so that way I could truly validate with my own eyes what I already know, which I just broke down. You know what I'm saying? People are stuck in the past, looking for a future from the past, and they're trapped in a time vortex of hate. So when I talk about the fountain of youth, you know what I'm saying? I was telling my man Packboy, and this is going to go a little longer because this opening monologue is important. When I was talking to Packboy in a serious joke, I told him, I figured out the fountain of youth. He was like, what do you mean, Sensei? And I was like, yo, there are so many moments in my day that time seems more extended. When I was younger and all stressed and frustrated, confused, like it seemed like a whole day went on longer than I wanted it to because I couldn't wait for tomorrow to come because, I already shot today in the crapper somewhere at the beginning point because something frustrated me. It threw me into my common confusion and misery. You know what I'm saying? But ever since I took on this new identity of understanding, time seems so much more. I have so many moments in a day. I'm like, man, every day it's like I live like 3 different days in one. Everybody has one day, one whole day. And I promise you, I have 3 different days in one day. And through that extension of thought is how I extend time because there are more pleasurable moments as opposed to specifically referencing only certain good moments, to call it that, and you have many more bad memories that you can't move on from. So then that makes life seem short because you don't enjoy the many of moments that are available. So what is the fountain of youth that all these older people are looking for? The extension of time is being able to create more moments. And when you create more moments, that is when you have discovered a new aspect of youth. I go around town and they're like, you ain't 52, you gotta be in your late 30s or early 40s. Because it seems like you are so energetic in your life, despite the fact that my back is all jacked up. They thought that I had some kind of an accident, like I fell off a ladder or whatever. And I'm like, nah, I just spent a lot of years, in the kitchen, culinary, and worked a lot of industrial accounts with heavy volume of people. And I have degenerative bones in specific areas within my spine and my back that doesn't help with a comfortable, common feeling when I'm in regular movement. But being that I'm so energetic off of this information, like the pain is severe as it could be, it doesn't feel as bad as it does. Like at this moment, because I'm so into this conversation, like I don't even feel the pain. But before we talk too much, let's get back into this book, because we are in chapter 9 and we were speaking about beyond happiness and unhappiness, there is peace. And that's why I had this long opening monologue. And we're about to go right into the reading. Impermanence is our first word that popped up. And I'm sure we looked it up in our conversation the other day, because I took a day off for the Super Bowl, and not to watch the Super Bowl, but because I kind of needed a breather, and I really didn't watch the Super Bowl like front to back. Like I saw enough of it to where I was like, nah, I'm not really truly interested. But anyway, impermanence, the state or fact of lasting for only a limited period of time. Impermanence and the cycles of life is our title into chapter. As long as you are in the dimension of time, you are still subject to its cyclical, and we're going to look that up, cyclical, 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 occurring in cycles or recurrent, continuing to repeat. So you are still subject to its cyclical nature and to law of impermanence of all things. But you no longer perceive this as bad. So when you become impermanent to these things, which means that this feeling of this displeasure should only last in small moments. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to these cyclical, which is consistent cycles of pain or misery. On the level of form, there is birth and death, which means, the birth leading into the death, which is going to go into the resurrection, which is the Christ, which we all have. But we're not at the point to be able to be reborn truly. On the level of form, there is birth and death, creation and destruction, growth and dissolution of seemingly separate forms. This is reflected everywhere in the cycle of life of a star or a planet, a physical body. Let me go back. This is reflected everywhere In the life cycle of a star or a planet, a physical body, a tree, a flower. In the rise and fall of nations, political systems, civilizations. Everything has a beginning, an end, and a new beginning, which is the resurrection. And in inevitable cycles of gain and loss in the life of an individual. You know what I'm saying? If you gain $100 and then you lose it, gambling, or, $100 bill fell out of your pocket, someone else picked it up, eventually you're going to get $100 again. Not that same $100, but you will get a new set of the standard of what represents $100, either in one bill or dispersed in different bills, which all add up to the 100. There are cycles of success when things come to you and thrive, and cycles of failure when they wither or disintegrate, and you have to let them go in order to make room for new things to arise or for transformation to happen. If you cling and resist at that point, it means you are refusing to go with the flow of life, and you will suffer. Let me give you an example. So when I left New York City, I put all my stuff in storage. And about a year later, I was told, when I was about to try to finally take the stuff out of the storage and wind up getting it sent to me, I get the information that I have like a few weeks to gather up X amount of money, or they were going to sell all the things in my storage. And I couldn't gather up that amount of money. So I wound up losing everything that I had, which was all my vinyl. I had like about 5,000 pieces of vinyl records gone. Turntables, speakers, all my DJ equipment gone. All of my furniture, my possessions that I left New York with basically just a couple of suitcases, but everything I had in New York, gone. Of course, I went to Atlanta and wound up building another life, losing all that stuff once I left. Here I am, where I'm at now for the last 11 years, almost 12 coming up in the summer, and I have a whole bunch of other possessions again. Clothes, shoes, all necessities, and even, some objects. Now I have a python, along with 2 cats and all kind of objects, So, when you lose things, it don't have to be forever. You just have to put your bootstraps back on and get to work, and then you're going to wind up, replenishing what you already lost, if you're that dedicated. Growth is usually considered positive, but nothing can grow forever. If growth of whatever kind were to go on, it would eventually become monstrositous and destructive, where conveniency becomes the complacency. Dissolution is needed for new growth to happen. Things must end in order for there to be a rebirth, a freshness. That's like the 4 seasons. We go from spring to summer to fall to winter, back to spring. New flowers, new energy. It's a new year. The down cycle, let me go back. If growth of whatever kind were to go on, it would eventually become monstrositous and destructive. Dissolution is needed for new growth to happen. One cannot exist without the other. The down cycle is absolutely essential for spiritual realization. You must have failed deeply on some level or experienced some deep loss or pain to be drawn to the spiritual dimension. Failure lies concealed in every success. Again, Failure lies concealed in every success, and success in every failure. From your drive of failing, you strive to success. And if you reach a high level of success and become complacent within that success, you more than possible can lose what you have, or lose a good portion of what you've already gained, and then you have to work hard to replenish back what you had before. Your physical energy is also subject to cycles. It cannot always be at a peak. There will be times of low as well as high energy. There will be periods when you are highly active and creative, but there may also be times when everything seems stagnant, when it seems that you are not getting anywhere, no achieving anything. Many illnesses are created through fighting against the cycles of low energy. You have to understand it for what it is. You just can't continue to beat down the problem like it can't be. It is. And in knowing that it is, you should be able to accept that you have to move forward and rebuild. The compulsion to do and the tendency to derive your sense of self-worth and identity from external factors, from all these possessions and objects, such as achievement, is an inevitable illusion as long as you identified with the mind. As long as you keep getting caught up in your thoughts about what went wrong, as opposed to accepting that things went wrong and you need to change and move forward in order to replenish or regain, like you're just going to be stuck in them cycles as we're talking about. This makes it hard or impossible for you to accept the low cycles and allow for them to be. Thus, the intelligence of the organism may take over as a self-protective measure and create an illness. Those 7 covers, the 7 deadly sins, the covers of the conscious con to protect the fear. Thus, the intelligence of the organism may take over as a self-protective measure and create an illness in order to force you to stop so that the necessary regeneration can take place. So, if you wind up being miserable to the point to where you're so miserable that you're sick of it, you could possibly snap out of that cycle and finally accept what is and be able to move forward. As long as a condition is judged as good by your mind, whether it be a relationship, because anything could change at any moment. You know what I'm saying? So for the moment, yeah, everything's straight. But in the next moment, you have to realize that it may not be. So as long as a condition is judged as good by your mind, whether it be a relationship, a possession, a social role, a place, or your physical body, the mind attaches itself to it and identifies with it. It makes you happy, makes you feel good about yourself, and it may become part of who you are or think you are. But nothing lasts in this dimension where the moth and rust consume. Everything goes to dust. Everything dies. Either it ends or it changes, or it may undergo a polarity shift. The same condition that was good yesterday or last year has suddenly or gradually turned into bad. That's what I just said. The same condition that made you happy then makes you unhappy. The same thing that you thought was the hottest thing now makes you miserable because it's not working. The prosperity of today becomes the empty consumerism. My fault. The consumerism. Gotta find my word. The prosperity of today becomes the empty consumerism of tomorrow. The happy wedding and honeymoon become the unhappy divorce or the unhappy coexistence. Or a condition disappears, so its absence makes coexistence No. Or a condition disappears, so its absence makes you unhappy. When a condition or situation that the mind has attached itself to and identified with changes or disappears, the mind cannot accept it. It's like, your kid with its favorite teddy bear. Now you grown. You can't hold on to that stuff. All those toys that you had as a kid, now you grown and you still want to keep it. Why? Your kids don't want to play with it. They don't identify with it, and you still keep it. It will cling to the disappearing condition and resist the change. It is almost as if a limb were being torn off your body. Things and conditions can give you pleasure, but they will also give you pain. Things and conditions can never give you pleasure, but they cannot give you joy. Nothing can give you joy. Joy is uncaused and arises from within as the joy of being. It is an essential part of the inner state of peace. It's like your friend tries to cheer you up and you're still miserable. Until you decide that you no longer want to be miserable, then it doesn't even matter. It is an essential part of the inner state of peace, the state that has been called the peace of God. It is your natural state, not something that you need to work hard for or struggle to attain. Many people never realize that there can be no salvation in anything they do, possess, or attain. Those who do realize it often become world-weary and depressed. If nothing can give you true fulfillment, what is there left to strive for? What is the point in anything? That's the misery. The happiness that is derived from some secondary source is never very deep. It is only a pale reflection of the joy of being, the vibrant peace that you find within as you enter the state of non-resistance. Being takes you beyond the polar opposites of the mind and frees you from dependency on form, on things, on objects. Even if everything were to collapse and crumble all around you, you would still feel a deep inner core of peace. You may not be happy, but you will be at peace. You may not be happy that you lost all the things or, the losses of your money or your business, but you should be at peace knowing that, hey, it happened and I could have did things different. I became complacent, and now, the convenience of that complacency now caused me at a point of struggle. But I could get it all back the same way that I built it before if I work hard and I apply my thoughts and my mind. Using and relinquishing negativity, getting rid of it. All inner resistance is experienced as negativity in one form or another. All negativity is resistance. In this context, the two words are almost synonymous. Negativity ranges from irritation or impatience to fierce anger, from a depressed mood or sullen resentment to suicidal despair. The ego believes that the negativity, it can manipulate reality. The ego believes that through negativity, it can manipulate reality and get what it wants. It believes that through it, it can attract a desirable condition or dissolve an undesirable one. Instead of attracting a desirable condition, it stops it from arising. Instead of dissolving an undesirable one, it keeps it in place. Its only useful function is that it strengthens the ego, and that is why the ego loves it. It wants you to be stuck in your thoughts. It wants you to be stuck into your despair, your worry. Once you have identified with some form of negativity, you do not want to let go. Like, the girl or the person that just broke up with you. You know what I'm saying? You gotta let it go. If you keep stewing over it, you're gonna get more and more miserable, and you're gonna wind up being more and more depressed. And on a deeply unconscious level, you do not want positive change. It would threaten your identity as a depressed, angry, or hard done by person. You know what I'm saying? You want people to feel bad for you because you think that's what's going to make you feel better. But in reality, you just continue to feel bad and feel worse and continue to put more pain. And then people get sick and tired of the misery, and then they'll move away from you. Once you have identified with some form of negativity, you do not want to let it go. And on a deeply unconscious level, you do not want positive change. It would threaten your identity as a depressed, angry, or hard done by person. You will then ignore, deny, or sabotage the positive in your life. Negativity is totally unnatural. It is a psychic pollutant, and there is a deep link between the poisoning and destruction of nature and the vast negativity that has accumulated in the collective human psyche. Have you ever come across a depressed dolphin, a frog that has a problem with self-esteem, a cat that cannot relax, or a bird that carries hatred and resentment? The only animals that may occasionally experience something akin to negativity or show signs of neurotic behavior are those that live in close contact with humans. And so link into human mind and its insanity. Why we got rageful dogs, or uncontrolled cats, because these are household pets, common. And the more closely they're related to humans, the more out of whack they get out of in their natural instincts. Watch any plant or animal and let it teach you acceptance of what is. You know what I'm saying? Packboy once told me, I told someone, if you want to learn how to relax, watch a cat. Surrender to the now. Let it teach you being. Let it teach you integrity, which means to be one, to be yourself, to be real. Let it teach you how to live and how to die, and how not to make living and dying into a problem. When you have reached a certain degree of presence, you don't need negativity anymore to tell you what is needed in your life situation. But as long as negativity is there, use it. Use it as a kind of signal that reminds you to be present. Whenever you notice that some form of negativity has arisen within you, look on it not as a failure, but as a helpful signal that is telling you, wake up, get out of your mind and be present. So whenever you feel negativity arising within you, whether caused by an external factor, a thought, or even nothing in particular that you are aware of, look on it as a voice saying, attention, here and now, wake up. Even the slightest irritation is significant and needs to be acknowledged and looked at. Otherwise, there will be a cumulative buildup of unobserved reactions. As an alternative to dropping a negative reaction, you can make it disappear by imagining yourself becoming transparent to the external cause of the reaction. Put yourself on the outer perspective of your emotional self and be honest in why the situation happened. What is the purpose of the irritation? None whatsoever. Why did you create it? You didn't. The mind did. It was totally automatic, totally unconscious. Why did the mind create it? Because it holds the unconscious belief that its resistance, which you experience as negativity or unhappiness in some form, will somehow dissolve the undesirable condition. This, of course, is a delusion. The resistance that it creates, the irritation or anger in this case, is far more disturbing than the original cause that it is attempting to dissolve. The original problem is no longer the problem. Your extreme anger now is a bigger problem because you continue to stew and fester and don't accept. So forgive yourself for not being at peace. Tell yourself, yeah, I'm an angry person, but I want to be at peace. And it's okay, man. But we're not going to be angry anymore. It's time for us to be at peace. So I forgive you for being angry all that time, but we're not going to do that anymore. I forgive you for all those other times, but we can no longer do that. The moment you completely accept your non-peace becomes transmuted into peace. Anything you accept fully will get you there, will take you into peace. This is the miracle of surrender. Accept what is. Stop fighting what is. You know what I'm saying? Deal with it. I took an order today. Once I got the order from the supermarket, thinking that it was a small order of, maybe 3, 4, 6 bags, I wound up having 10 cases of 12-can soda and 10-pound cat litter. And I was supposed to have lifted these items and take it inside of this facility to this person's specific room. And that was going to require a whole lot more pressure on my muscles that make me move in utilization of my back. And I told the dude in the front, honestly, from the jump, I'm like, look, I have a bad back and I have no cartilage in my shoulder. I have this order that's supposed to go to this resident, and this pay does not compensate in my worth and value. It's not going to compensate to the pain required in order to complete this all the way to the most fullest degree. So I'm going to leave it here. I already sent the customer a message. They never replied back. I am taking a picture to document that it was delivered right here, and I have it documented within the application through the message exchange of the situation and how I was going to deal with it. And from that point, I moved on. I made a decision. I was comfortable with it. I was honest. I was straightforward. I covered all the communication bases, and then I just was through with it, and I moved on. And that was that. You know what I'm saying? And that right there is next level. That's peace. Like, I wasn't going to continue to stew and be frustrated and go through the whole, now I got to take all these things upstairs and you know what I'm saying? Or even on the back end, like, why the hell this person had to do this and they shouldn't have did. They did what they did because, they, for whatever reason that was going to compensate their needs, that's why they compensated you to the lower degree than your value you felt was worth. You know what I'm saying? And that was what I told myself. So I'm like, my worth and value means a lot more, especially in this specific situation. And with these amount of items with a lot of weight. So guess what? This is what I did. And I met you pretty much more than halfway, and I wasn't going to uncomfortably have my physical condition exposed, at your expense of being cheap. So, I called it a day, and that was that, but I wasn't going to hold on to that worry, that stress, or create a higher level of anger in a situation and a choice that I could easily control by making a decision and being comfortable in the decision I made, knowing that it wasn't made in malice or disrespect. I was honest, forward, and full circle in my communication. And then I was through. And I moved on to the next play. So, in that regard, let's move on from this conversation because this is going to wrap up our daily interaction of information. So, on that note, tomorrow's another day, and we're still in this chapter 9, and we're going to start moving into the nature of compassion. That's going to be the next subtitle into a conversation tomorrow, and we should finish up chapter 9, going into chapter 10, which is the end of this fantastic novel, which I am going to completely state on the back end because I usually do it in the front. The Power of Now, A Guide to Spiritual Enlightenment by Eckhart Tolle, spelled E-C-K-H-A-R-T, last name T-O-L-L-E. And on that note, I'm going to tell you that this is your Sensei Fouché, live and direct in your neighborhood, telling all y'all to stay woke and make sure you always relax and be prepared to take notes. Be smooth. 1.